My name is Professor Akim Ayofe Akinwale. I have the privilege to be the chair of this particular plenary session. And we have powerful presenters. We have an array of leading researchers and practitioners in the field of migration and global studies here at these plenary sessions. We are going to have lead paper presentations. And I want to invite the speakers to take the front seat. And the first on the list is Professor Akim Ibikunle Tijani to take a seat, although I understand that the Chief of Mission to Federal Republic of Nigeria from the International Organization for Migration, IOM, will be the first to speak because of pressing, urgent activity. Then we are also going to listen to the presentation by Professor Abubakar Olarewaju Sulaiman, the Director General of National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. And I understand his presentation will be given by Professor Joshua Omotola. I met him earlier, and he's currently taking his lunch. So before the Chief of Mission completes our presentation, I believe the representative of the Director General will be here with us. And after that, we're going to have presentation by Professor Akim Ibikunle Tijani, and we're also going to have presentation by Her Excellency Ambassador Catherine Udida, the Director of Migrant Affairs Department, National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons. So, ladies and gentlemen, kindly welcome our lead paper presenters. And to start this, I have the privilege to invite to the podium the Chief of Mission to Federal Republic of Nigeria from International Organization for Migration, Paula Pace. I want to skip a citation just to buy some time. We are already familiar with our scholarship and our impact in the field of migration studies. She said earlier that she has been in the field for more than 2 decades. And I believe she has worked across Africa, Europe, and North America. So Paula Pace, I have the privilege to invite you to make your presentation. Kindly please, as much as possible, we are pressing for time. We also appreciate your presence and your presentation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. I wrote an abstract that I will send also to the university and I can develop it further. I have a few slides. I don't know if we can show them, otherwise we can also do without. Thank you very much for the opportunity. So for the International Organization for Migration, it's very important to work with academia. I was discussing it with the Vice Chancellor and some of the professors, also Professor Gloria, who organized this event. For us as IOM, we've always partnered with academic institutions, in particular, not necessarily to create center of excellences. It's not that we have something against center of excellences, on the contrary, but we do firmly believe, as the UN organization specialized in migration, that is critical to embed, to include migration in every study. So you have a faculty of economics, faculty of law, different health faculties, medicine, psychology, public health, nursing. You can include migration health, migration economics, international migration law, and so on, statistic, migration data, and so on and so forth in the humanities. So I've done this kind of work in many universities, mostly in Europe and Africa. In Africa, in particular, Uganda, with the Kampala University, Muhimbili, in Tanzania, VIX in South Africa, and so on and so forth. So I think in Nigeria, there are several universities that have approached IOM. We have signed several memoranda of understanding, some cooperation frameworks, and we do believe that making sure that the researcher of tomorrow, but also the parliamentarians of tomorrow, the statistician of tomorrow, the minister of tomorrow, the presidents of tomorrow, if during their academic study, they can be exposed to migration study, they can also embed migration in the way they work. But to go back to the subject, because sometimes there's a bit of confusion about migration. If we do a test, if you have all your phone, my one is without battery, but if you have still battery on your phone, if you click the word migrant, what do you see? Let's do it. Let's do an experiment. So you click, you take one search, you click the word migrant, and then you click on images. What do you see? Maybe we can go to the next slide. What do you see? Let me try. Migrants, and then you click on images. What are the images that come out from your screen?
The first thing I saw is human migration. Images? Oh, okay. I say pictures. People trying to dialogue, as I will be discussing in a few minutes. And of course, risking their lives. And this is what I call Japa without a sense. Because the sense, of course, is not common, like they always admonish us. So those are the ugly pictures of people living without necessarily understanding the complication and complexity of migration.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Like I said, the picture here shows a bunch of set of hopeless people in a particular country seeking for hope elsewhere. It appears they lack the skill, from what I'm saying. There's no, it appears they don't have skill.
You want to intervene? All right. The last one, and then.
I see pictures of several people who are trying to move on from one location to the other. But one thing that is striking to me is most of them they are blacks.
Very good observation. Can I ask for a woman, and then I come to you? Who wants to intervene? My sisters? No? You don't want to? All right. Who is the gentleman?
Thank you. I see people that are moving, that are persecuted, that are affected by conflict, that are politically politically discharged, or inability of their country to provide the necessary platform for them to exhibit their potential. That's what I see.
Interesting commentaries. The last two, and then we'll go forward. We'll continue later with questions.
I see people that are desperate to relocate. They are taking risks, not even minding the consequences. In fact, desperation, taking risks, not minding the consequences, what they will meet, even as they go. I see people that are even inside the bus. I saw one inside the bus. a bus that is used to pack clothes and somebody's inside because the person wants to relocate, maybe for a greener or a greenest pasture. So they are desperate, not minding the risks that is involved.
Is it really this migration? We'll see it in a few minutes, but I think we have the last comment.
From my observation here, I can see people walking through the deserts, group of people, as well as group of people walking through the waterways. Thank you.
All right. So, certain color of skin, desperation, big numbers, unsafe trips. Is this migration? What do we think? Now, we said it, if we go to a few slides. So we said it this morning. Migration can be, thank you. So how do I move? How do I go back? So migration can be international. When we cross border, is mostly internal, okay? 1 on 6 migrants are internal migrants. The majority of people who change their place of habitual residence, they move within their countries. If I ask many of you if you were born in Abuja or if your families are from Abuja, many will say no. So for studying purposes, family unity, job search and so on, people migrate mostly within one country, okay? And the African continent, from where you have seen huge masses leaving, is the continent, one of the continents in the world where people migrate the least. Okay, that's a fact. So if we look, what we saw, it was about international migration, not about internal, all right? And again, about one type of international migration, which is irregular migration flows. They represent between 10 to 15%, 10-15% of migration flows. Okay? So it's the minority. If you look at the sources, you won't find academia. The sources of these pictures is mostly media. They like sensationalism. So they drive the narrative, a certain narrative, okay? About masses, about certain nationality, certain color of skin, certain religion, invading someone else, okay? They use these words like waves, invasions, masses, yeah? But that's not the reality of migration, okay? If we look at international migration, then we go to internal migration. If we look at international migration, again, mostly is regular, so people cross borders, mostly towards the neighboring countries, okay? If you look at Nigerians, they are mostly in West Africa. West Africans stay in West Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa has the highest level of intra-regional international migration. So if you look at the statistics and you look at who moves within the continent and who moves within sub-regions, you will see it's mostly you go to neighboring countries where you have similar languages, similar custom, you have family ties, and so on and so forth, okay? So the majority of migrants nowadays migrate regularly, and the majority of them, 65% are migrant workers, followed by family members, international students, but you have also, and you mentioned it before, the colleague over there with the brown jacket, he was saying, there are also people who have to flee, mostly internally or crossing a border, to seek asylum because they've lost the protection of their country of origin. So among those who cross border, you have also asylum seekers and refugees, okay? So all migrants have human rights, are human beings first. They have also duties. So resisting mobility is inefficient and it doesn't make sense because we do have migration, as we said today, has developmental advantages. And migrants are agents of development, but they shouldn't be looked as a commodity or as a wallet to exploit and so on and so forth, okay? I'm not sure, okay. So as a champion country for the adoption, when it was adopted in the implementation of this legal instrument on migration, Nigeria has a huge role to play in terms of changing this narrative. And also academia putting out that kind of images, the data, the narrative, the realities behind migration, and not all these stereotypes, okay? So for example, we are saying that the majority of migrants, international migrants, are migrant workers, okay? There's a treaty of 1949, so this treaty is older than the Refugee Convention. But when you ask people who are migrants nowadays, they'll tell you maybe the word refugees, asylum seeker comes to their mind, but migrant worker, they will never use this term, okay? Although it's a legal category as much as refugees, okay? And the first labor law treaty on migrant workers is from 49, so it's quite old, before the Refugee Convention, okay? So there are 3 treaties, and Nigeria is a party also of the Human Rights Treaty on migrant worker and family members that talk about the fact that the majority of people crossing the border and establish themselves elsewhere are migrant workers and family members, majority in a regular situation, and there are those in irregular situation. Among those in irregular situation, the majority are overstayers, not those who cross the border regularly. And why? Because migration policies legislation have not really evolved in the right direction, making difficult for people to transfer, to convert their statuses from students into work permits. South Africa, let's take one example in the continent, has gone very far in terms of improving their migration policies for students. So now they have come to the realization that they attract lots of international students, mostly from the continent and from elsewhere, people who want to study English and so on and so forth. So they have also to have a way to retain these diverse, very versatile and extremely knowledgeable youth. But they haven't done the same for the workers, not coming to the realization that they do need workers in many sectors of the economy. South Africa is the biggest immigration country, number-wise, of the continent. It's a fact. But the number of immigrants in South Africa have declined. In every other country went up, in South Africa declined. Okay? So that's a fact. So it makes us think. So Nigeria is leading lots of different discussion on migration, including international migration. And in December 2023, I see Ambassador Udida was with us. IOM and the Nigerian government brought together civil society, private sector, and other member states to discuss on how can Nigeria push globally and can be also an example in terms of regular pathway, immigration facilitation towards Nigeria. Nigeria is used to be mostly a country of immigration. People were coming from the region to study and work here. It's still the case, but then more recently, Nigeria became also a country of immigration, but not historically. That's something we need to recognize. So what are the benefits of promoting regular migration, but a migration that is a choice and not a necessity? Because we also don't want brain drain to happen, and there's a way to do it. How can we prevent brain drain and really go towards brain circulation? So you have heard a lot talking about remittances, but diaspora is not about remittances, okay? It's about transfer of knowledge. It's about building bridges. It's about being the best of the 2 or 3 worlds. We have a diaspora member among us who is a theater professor and immigrating in the 90s from Nigeria, and has done a lot for Europe and for Africa, including his country of origin, Nigeria. Alfinze, who showcased this beautiful piece you watched before. So when we talk about international migration, we heard other words, outbound, inbound. You can also talk about emigration, when people leave Nigeria to go elsewhere. They emigrate, they leave their motherland, or immigration, We said that Nigeria was traditionally and historically more a country of immigration. So we said how many are, in terms of here you have the numbers of the 2000. So you have UNDESA. UNDESA is the branch of the UN, United Nations, collecting migration statistics. If you go on their website, every 2 years, they publish a report on the outlook of migration globally. And we as IOM also collect certain data and publish every 2 years a study, the World Migration Report, it's called. But if you want to have statistics globally, you can see where the immigrant in Nigeria come from, where do Nigerians go to, and so on and so forth. You'll find these numbers in the UNDESA database. So the top destination country of Nigerians are within Africa, are Cameroon, Niger, Benin, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire. That's in every single part of the world is the same. It's particularly true in sub-Saharan Africa. So migration is mostly intra-regional, much less outside the region, North Africa or Southern Africa or overseas, much less statistically. Among those emigrating from Nigeria, you also had Nigerians who fled conflicts and, for example, found refuge in countries like Chad, like Niger and Cameroon, where they seek asylum. And you have some of them who also repatriated, voluntarily returned to Nigeria, quite some numbers recently in states like Borno and others. So here you have some figures about remittances, but again, that's not the mere contribution. It's not only monetary, the contribution. Yes, 2 minutes, I'll be very fast. And statistics also show us, and migration economics, that migrants, international migrants, contribute more to the society where they go to than the country of origin. That's also important to know. 75% of the expenditure is not the remittance they send back, is the money they invest in the country where they live. So these are the numbers of immigrants. So Nigeria received 1,300,000 immigrants, including a bit more of 100,000 refugees and asylum seekers. So the majority of migrants, we said, are migrant worker, family members. Asylum seeker and refugees represent between 10 to 15% of the migrant stock. That's the case in Nigeria too. So you have 1,300,000 immigrants, mostly migrant worker, family member, international students, to a lesser extent asylum seeker refugees, those who seek asylum, fleeing persecution from other countries and find a refuge in Nigeria. So mostly also if we look at other ECOWAS member states, you'll see immigration and immigration are mostly within the region. And there are opportunities to also discuss migration and the benefits within African Union and other fora. If we look at internal migration, that's the majority of migration, okay? 700 million something are the number of internal migrants. Of them, 9% are forced internal migrants, also known as internally displaced persons. Those who had to flee because of an external compelling factor, mostly conflicts. You have also natural disaster and so on, but the majority of those forced to leave their place of habitual presence and mostly moving within their own country to a lesser extent across borders are internally displaced persons, and they mostly are displaced because of conflict, okay? But the majority of internal migrants are not internally displaced persons, are again those moving elsewhere because of study, family unit, looking for job opportunities. Rural to urban migration is a typical example. And if well governed, can be very beneficial. Now, in terms of internally displaced persons, the number globally has gone higher. When I started working on migration 20 years ago, the number of internally displaced persons was 39 million. The number of international migrants is 281. Internal displaced persons 20 years ago was 39 million. Now it's 75 million. More than half of these IDPs are in Africa, 10 million in West and Central Africa, 3.5 million in Nigeria, mostly in northern states. Okay? First state for number of IDPs, Borno, followed by Benue in north central. So you have the statistic northwest, north central, and northeast. The statistic for the northwest, though, is not the latest. The latest show an increase of displaced person, 70,000 more in the northwest just in the last few months. And then you see the breakdown of IDPs who are still in a condition of displacement, 3.5 million, and then 2 million of IDPs that return to their ancestral land. Okay, I'll go very fast. You'll see that the majority of the reasons why people became IDPs in Nigeria is because of conflict, okay? So certainly insurgency, but also urban farmer conflict, intracommunal, and so on and so forth. You have also those displaced by flood, and you have people who have been displaced multiple times. So there's a lot that needs to be done. As IOM, we are supporting Nigeria in updating the national migration policy. I'm sure Ambassador Odida will tell you more. We're also supporting Nigeria in the development of the IDP policy, his action plan, the state's plans on durable solution. So our work as a migration UN organization, the second largest UN organization in Nigeria, is supporting Nigeria in saving lives, creating durable solutions for IDPs to avoid that they are dependent on aid, and they can instead being back on their feet and contribute to the society they live in, as well as making sure that migration is a choice and not as a necessity, prevent brain drain, and work on regular pathways towards Nigeria and from the Nigeria to the world. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. And in conclusion, migrants are human beings first. They have a lot to give, but human rights and migrant-centered approach should be always at the center, not a security-based approach that is also the consequence of this wrong narrative of migration. And with that, I wanted to thank you with a few references, and you're always welcome to contact me.
Great. Thank you very much for this excellent presentation. We have seen the statistics, we have seen the narratives, we have seen the emerging solutions. So can we take 2 short questions for her because of our busy schedule? Oh, great. Okay, so please take note of your questions. So we want to listen to other lead paper presenters. So we take all the questions together. So the next to make his presentation is the pioneer director of the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, National Open University of Nigeria, Professor Akim Ibikunle Tijani. You have the floor, sir. We will appreciate if you can help us to save time, sir. Apology for this. Thank you, sir.
The LOC chair is bribing me. He's aware of the dictum that the worst you want to do is to give him the mic, and he will just tell you, you are right. You flew me here, you house me, you feed me, I'm getting fat. And then instead of about 35 minutes or 40, you now tell me 5 minutes. But I will be kind to you. What I have done is to share with us my PowerPoint that I created about 30-something hours ago. But I have also a written paper that I have, which is just about, I kind of trim it down to about 6-7 pages. And as I listen to all the presentation, from the fantastic, informative keynote by our brother to various interventions, and lastly, the head of mission, IOM, rich data-driven presentation, I begin to rethink my presentation. I will indulge the LOC and the director to kindly share my paper. But I will read part of my paper because I have some solution-driven also, advocacy and then solution. And I will quickly run through my PowerPoint for emphasis. It is all about preparation. I have always lived, and I preach the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps is quite important as we migrate voluntarily or involuntarily. The 3 Ps is very, very germane as we find solution to what is indeed not a problem. And that is the title of my talk. Migration is not a problem. And I have my reason for pursuing that perspective. What are the 3 Ps that is also important in leadership? Number 1, preparation. Number 2, preparation. And I guess number 3, you know it now, preparation. And I decided to invoke that mantra because of our sister's presentation that is inclusive pedagogy by going around the class, and it just again taught us, for those of us that are teachers, to be inclusive, engaging in our presentation as well as classroom. Permit me to read because I can speak to tomorrow, as the former VC said. That is why when they made that decision in 2020, 5 of them according to him, and when he called me, he said they got a fund from TED Fund to start off something. Center of Excellence in what? And I was right there by Galadima roundabout. I was the director of the Gariki Center. And I had spent 9 years to Jakarta, to Nigeria. And of course, I was winding up to return because it's not easy giving up $7,000 after tax in 2011 to return to Nigeria. But I have no regret. I made it. I made many friends. I sowed into several lives. And so please, if you see people warming and welcoming and reaching out to me, don't play it. Just learn and model good leadership and servant leadership. So in July 2024, I presented a paper titled Educational Mobility and National Development, Nigeria, Jakarta, and Jalo, Paradox or Paradigm. This was at the Nigerian in the Diaspora Commission's conference. Of course, one thing that I also regret is that the people that were supposed to be listening and implementing are no longer here. That is the truth. They're supposed to be here to listen to us and take note, because our advocacy for regular migration, for Jakarta, that is return and add value, as I continue to do, and prevent Jalo, or some of us that are also embodiment of, let me call it the way it is, corruption, that validates some of this Jalo. And in my experience, which is not below 36, in October it will be 37 years that I've been in the academia. And I think I'm still learning. We're supposed to be here to listen, because I'm going to concentrate more on the PowerPoint. I will read my advocacy from this paper, okay? And I will now give you the trajectory so that you know where I'm coming from in the following the Emeritus Professor Sogolo's presentation. Don't show my picture yet. Who's pressing? Oh, am I the one pressing? Can you go hand? Just go there. Okay. So what are the advocacy? Let me quickly skip all of this. And I don't want to define the causes, the consequences, the concepts, the theories, blah, blah, blah. We have established this center as what I call institutional contest of migration discourse. That is the origin when that sunny Friday, Professor Abdallah Ubadamu, Vice Chancellor, told me, "You're going to leave Gariki, see me on Monday." But unfortunately, we couldn't see on Monday. Why? Because COVID. But within 48 hours, I sent to him all that we have as a center. And then when I sat there in the morning, I was reading those vision, mission, and I checked my email, and I checked the concept note, and I said, oh my God, did I do that? That is an element of preparation of the fact that they trust you, and you can run with the mission. Okay. So for me, the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies, the first of its kind in Nigeria. And for the record, it's a pity the ES is not here. The former ES has left. And that is why I want them to be here, including the former Vice Chancellor, but I have no issue with it. National Open University of Nigeria, NOUN, is the first Center of Excellence in Nigeria to be created, funded by TEDFund. This is the first, but they have no idea what should we call it. And we came up with the Migration and Global Studies after research. So the idea of TEDFund recognizing 12, some 2 years ago when I returned to Morgan State University, I wasn't happy. And I started calling them and said, what are you people talking about? The Center of Excellence, the first is National Open University of Nigeria. There's no such thing until you people announce this stuff from 2 years after. And you did not list NOUN. So, but NOUN today is being celebrated thanks to the continuation of a good work by my sister, Professor Aneto, who by divine intervention is our turn to take the torch. I don't know who came before Elijah and Elisha. Help me, I'm not a pastor. Who gave the baton? So whichever one, she's the female Elijah. And then she's doing fantastically well. Thanks to the LOC for spending a year here too. And today we have all these people. When we started, I was the only academic staff. I was the only brain, but I engaged my staff. Remind me of your name. There's a man in CAP to be recognized. I keep forgetting his name. I can't hear you, although you are not a teacher. You are into Samuel was and Blessing. They were the most senior administrative people. But I taxed their brain. We talked, we discussed, we dissect, and they got into the loop. Okay. So today, when you talk about the fact that we want to study migration, voluntary or involuntary, we have become, under the leadership of Professor Gloria Aneto, the talk of the town for good. And I just wish her more blessings to her in our ministry of migration study. I've also, in this paper, talked about the need for us to decolonize education migration or migration education. Someone talked about the fact that it was our sister, Honorable Abike Dabiri that talked about the need for informal as well as formal education. And I think it's very, very important, particularly when we contextualize it within the current agenda of the government in power today. Renewed Hope agenda, if well synergized, could help and enrich more remittances, more value-adding activities, as the head of mission, IOM, rightly informed us. So it will also help us in understanding Jakwada as a missing link in the Japa syndrome. Of course, Jakwada could also assist us in our national initiatives, such as the National Student Loan Scheme and the Vocational Technology Skill. I want to say that there is absolutely nothing wrong with migration, and I will showcase why using myself as an example. But before I do that, I want to speak to the most celebrated human capacity development that will address the element of Jalo or Jakwada. Jakwa and then Jalo. Jalo is a point of no return. They're not even thinking about returning. And it could be internal. Someone leaving Kwara State to stay in Lagos State forever. Okay? But more importantly, in its international context, Jalo implies that you are just not returning. By element of legal, but most of the time illegal activities wherever you are. What then are the solutions? We had an ugly situation some 2-3 years ago, arising from what is known popularly as the Tedford Morgan Doctoral and Postdoctoral Fellowship. It was one of those visions that, as I was thinking of Jakwada after 9 years or so, living dollar salary, I started thinking about how can we help those people without a PhD to be trained at Morgan State University. And those with PhD will be enhanced in terms of having access to resources and to connect and continue. But unfortunately, you have some people, including 2 from this institution, that chose to dialogue, and they chose to disrespect themselves and put us in a very dire situation. But we are still standing, just like this center is standing. So what are the solutions to some of these challenges that we have? I have read, when it comes to the education migration, that is my own area, sector, talking about intellectual migration now, that you have to review the bond and agreement that each one of those scholars signed before leaving. There's a need for review of it. You see, you can jalo, you can japa, but make a common sense of it. We have to limit sponsorship to awardees alone. When we started Morgan Tedford stuff, people did not see it as being fruitful because we started late in July. And as we all know, schools start in August in the US. They say, how are you going to get visa for them? How are you going to? Thanks to Bogoro, Professor Bogoro, he allowed me to work with his directors. And that was another challenging moment because they have never seen what they call a bulldozer and someone that has come to Abuja to count bridges. That is the way they refer to me at Tedford then. But I have no regret. I accomplished the mission, and of course I Jakwada, and then they're still looking for me. So we have to empower Nigerian embassies, High Commission, overseas, particularly the passport unit, to begin to track the progress of sponsored government students in all institutions overseas. But let me end up by talking about the strategic benefits to Nigeria, whether it is Jakwa, Jalo, Jakwada, okay, whatever the variant we're talking about. One, increased dollar earnings. There's no way we can overemphasize that. But I think we can do more by having what we call the estate and housing support. We talk about the Yahoo boys, unemployed youth. How do we harvest their talents? How do we do that? We do that by operating in a way that the government of Nigeria can work with the government of other nations. I will give an example where I'm familiar, the United States. The H-1 visa, India is seriously investing it. People are working remotely. Imagine you calling customer service for T-Mobile or for, what is the other phone we have in Nigeria? And then your customer service rep is in India. They're making dollar salary and they're investing it back into the economy. So those are some of the stuff. Let's go on my slide now. I am not seeing anybody. I have not traveled 24 hours in the year to come and eat your food. And so on the slide, please. And I will control it from that control. Keep going. Next slide. This is an evidence of Japa. After 4 years at the University of Lagos, and my PhD doctoral program was just not going the way I wanted it. Not because my supervisor was a terrible person. He's one of the best Baba ever. But he became the first ambassador of Nigeria to United Germany. And I wanted to study anti-communism. And I was so stubborn, I didn't realize that you can get whatever they want you, but I chose not to. But today, I'm collecting royalty based on that publication on anti-communism from Routledge. Before I came, I got in the mail a check for 230 something because my book keeps selling. Next slide. So you can japa with a sense. You can also japa and be relevant in your country. I served as a legal resident of the United States. Indeed, I served in Iraq for 6 months. And that is how I became a citizen. Okay. So you can be relevant, be resilient, and then you'll be relevant to both the homeland and your original homeland. Because for me, it's either you pick Texas or you pick Maryland, where I have properties, where my children were born, that, you know, you continue to enjoy the benefit of having Japa from your country legally. Next slide. Of course, by His grace, I am a commissioner in the state of Maryland. I was shocked when the state of Maryland governor, Westmore, appointed me as one of the commissioners on the Maryland Commission of African American History and Culture. I am a historian, and the worst you will do is to delay us for the purpose why we are here and now begging for me to stop until I get to the end of this. So I'm just being respectful. That's why I'm answering you. You know, I'm not looking at you. That's my most beautiful wife. Next slide. Of course, our pastor, and when I was getting, picking up my certificate as a commissioner, in between the first one, you see one of your colleagues, Miss Irene Boro, who is now Dr. Irene Boro Olong Nishola. She's one of those third form sponsors. And then on the other one behind my wife is Dr. Toyin Ashonibare, and of course the pastor of our Redeemed Church. Next slide. I japada in 2011. The professor, I don't know, you will be the number 4 dean of that faculty. Stand up to be recognized, Professor Tobalashe. I put this guy through the American system of interview in 2011, and he remained with them. Today is the dean of the Faculty of Arts and Education. I never knew he was coming here. And then next to him is Professor Ogbonna, who also went through that, rigor of being interviewed and getting appointment. It's not all about, can we meet you? No. As a dean, I came back. The tallest man, let me tell you how we had, and we have to sing our own song. You can see me there as amiable, I'm still my normal self. The tallest man on campus is now Dr. What's his name again? Efutade is the VP for spiritual life, and I believe he's a professor of religious studies. This group of students were the pioneer students in religious studies. I don't know how we got this picture. They just cornered me. They loved the way I was doing things, modeling. The lady beside me on my left, right, she's a doctor now. She's a lecturer one, okay? And I believe Amisu is a pastor. The rest of them are doctors. They are all doing well. These are people that when you jackpada, you add value. And that is what I'm trying to say, because nobody will tell this story. Most people are hearing this for the first time, with the exception of those people that were at Adeleke University when what I was supposed to do was to help them to interview and to engage them in faith and learning workshop. And then they arrested me and said, write application. I said, application for what? You can't pay me. But at the end of the day, they prayed. And their prayer, I just went back to US. And my wife said, must be something is wrong with you. How are we going to pay the housing and the mortgage? And I said, God will make a way. And God did make a way. Okay, next slide. We are getting there. The lady beside me to my left, no, my right, was our cleaner. This is my office as a deputy vice chancellor. The lady behind me, that is Professor Oyedepo now, right? She was the acting dean of sciences. The lady next to her was his secretary. The young man there was my driver. Guess what? We have a full professor. We have the cleaner that has a master's in computer science. We have the secretary with a master's. And of course, the young man with master's, as well as a senior library officer. That is what Jackpada should do. That is the value. And I'm emphasizing this to model. You don't Jackpada because you want to be vice chancellor, or you want to be a minister, or you want to be a commissioner, and what have you. You can Jackpada and add value and continue to. When I call on these people, they will be running. If you see Professor Otobalashe carrying my bag, he knows that I don't like it. You'll see Professor Bono, they know I don't like it, but they will, because we continue to add value. Next slide. I didn't drink any of those Coke. I don't drink it. That is Professor Bogoro. The gentleman standing is Dr. Mustafa, one of his technical officer on political appointment. That is his house. Whether official or unofficial, I don't know. But that is where, after a year, I was thinking about how can we stem Jakwa in the education sector and ensure a kind of, training, sustainable one. We signed the MOU in his house under COVID with Morgan State University. It was the ES of Thetford. By that time, I had been appointed as the director of this center, and I was winding up. The VC told me, go and look for a successor. You've established something that I can't even think who will be there. But luckily, he found Professor Aneto. So we signed it there. That is an evidence of, after a year, when somebody in Nigeria, his immediate predecessor was telling me to go and look for Harvard. And of course, on that day, he had the thing I was supposed to have from me. I just told him, first, you did not study overseas. You did all your degrees in Kano. Standing before you is a Commonwealth scholar. I've lived overseas. And I work at Morgan. I know Morgan, I don't know Harvard. Because going overseas is not just about getting the degree. That is why some of us will japa and we don't have a sense of utilizing or harvesting the degree. So we're able to sign and continue. Today we have postdoctoral people, we have PhD students, we have over 100 and something students from all over tertiary institutions of Nigeria. Next slide. This is my house at the back, the balcony. These folks are the pioneer PhD students from different parts of Nigeria. Those who came on time, I'm a time-conscious person. Thank God I was in the LOC. I will have started. Whether the minister is here or not, he will meet us. That is me. The worst you will do is, oh, okay, leave the position. I'll go back to the classroom. So those who made it took that picture with me because I invited them. And these are the evidence. Next slide. These are the postdoctoral. Among these people, some of them knuckleheads, as we say in the military, refused to return. They created problems. They are miserable now. In this paper, I discuss about them. They have no papers. Those are the people that will be running from Trump. Okay? Yes, you can come up. Speak for me. Next slide. We were discussing dissecting Jakpada. The man in white is a BOT of third form. They were concerned about people finishing their programs and not returning, including some from National Open University of Nigeria. So they came to Morgan. They met with the president. They met with the provost. I was there on QA. And then we decided to come up with solution, which is contained in my essay written paper, that the big men and women supposed to be here listen, but unfortunately they left. Next slide. That is part of the picture. Next slide. Of course, the first set of postdocs. This picture was taken at the professorial building when I called them, meeting them for the first time. I don't know them from Adams. But at least 7 of them decided to Jallo. But today, no papers, nothing. PhD, they are miserable, they are AWOL. That's their own wahala. Next slide. These are the infamous 7 that chose to get bogus, fake documents that I now told them, I said, look, have you forgotten that Tijani is not an Americana? Have you forgotten that I started my career in what used to be Jalingo, Gongola State? Have you forgotten that I was in LASU, Lagos State University for 10 years? Have you forgotten that I returned and spent 9 years as a dean, pioneering, as a pioneer deputy vice chancellor? Have you forgotten that I turned down 3 vice chancellor positions? You must be out of your brain bringing these fake papers that somebody in third form will write us and say 7 of you out of 17 should be retained or extended. I am not going to be a party to it. So if they've told you wrong stories on campus, you can see familiar faces. Eric is not there because he was here in Nigeria destroying others at third form. I don't fear people. But you can see the leader that chose to come back after 6 years. Somebody that colleagues say, I will never host any Nigerian. They have not added value. Some of them returned thereafter, maybe 2, 3, and they were not paid. Guess what they were doing? They started calling my pastor, help us beg Professor Tijani. I said, what's my business? Next slide. Of course, some of them have sense. They Japada. This woman is from Nasarawa State Polytechnic or something, and a few of them, that we celebrated, gave them certificate of completion. And they are making waves. This woman continued with her host making dollars. Why? Somewhere in Nasarawa, down the road. She continued to. That is harvesting Jakwada, harvesting opportunities, and a modeling good behavior. Next slide. Of course, the BOT finding solution to this ugly situation of Jalo visiting us. Next slide. We're almost there. The BOT too. Next slide. Of course, the transition. Madam will be shocked to be seeing herself. We did the transition, the handover, and I told her she can do it. She's here. She was afraid. She said, Prof, how am I going to survive? You don't have any academic staff, so to work with you. I said, you will do it. Receive the mantle. The Lord will be with you. And today she has done it. She has done what we have not been able to do. With the support of Professor Akinwale, and all these brilliant staff. I think that will be the last slide. The last one. Go ahead. This is when we seal the deal. This is when the Vice Chancellor called her. This is when she received the mantle. This is when she was shocked before the first picture that I showed. She was still wondering, you sure I'm the director? I'm succeeding him? So, and then last slide, of course, we took another picture. And that is my handover note. So again, we can make a sense of JAPA. My paper may not be seriously academic, but there's an element of academic stuff in this essay written. But the PowerPoint is just to validate the fact that with the element or the mantra of the 3 P's, preparation, 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 we can make a difference, and we can be earning our dollars or euro anywhere we are. I thank you for listening. God bless you.
Should I say thank you, Prof? I have to, even if I don't want to. So, Prof has spent double the time, and I'm going to protest later, not now, and I will do the protest privately because, okay, let me skip that. Thank you very much, Prof, for this excellent presentation and telling stories in pictures. That's quite remarkable. Big stories has been narrated in picture format. So the next on our list is another heavyweight, Professor Abubakar Olanrewaju Sulaiman, the Director General of National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. He was the former Minister for National Planning. And of course, he has a long list of citations, but time will not permit us. And to represent him is another intellectual giant of international repute, Professor Shola Omotola, the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration of former Deputy Vice Chancellor Admin of Federal University Oye-Ekiti. If I'm to read the citation of Professor Omotola, it will take more than 1 day. So I want to seek his indulgence to skip that and invite him to the podium to represent the DG. Thank you, sir. Please, sir, you have 15 minutes. Please, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please permit me to just go along with the already established protocol. But even at that, let me recognize my brother and my friend, Akim. Good to see you again. We have come of age. I know how we started the journey, and I will never forget that conference at last week. I'm sure you remember. And I think before I go into the paper, I must also acknowledge my big brother, my mentor, who just delivered his paper now. And when you have to mount the podium after such a big giant, it's always a big ask for small scholars like us. Thank you, Prof, for all the good work you have been doing. We sincerely appreciate. Now, let me, on behalf of my DG, register his unreserved apologies for his inability to make this presentation personally. He was here since morning. But you know, as a chief executive, there are so many other things waiting. So we had to summon me under an emergency call that has to report to come and make this presentation on his behalf. So I hope you will understand and accept his apologies. The title of the paper given to him is Sustainability Research and Development Pathways. Sustainability Research and Development Pathways. But because the time is so short, I think what I'm just going to do is to highlight key elements, key contents, key strands of the argument he has advanced in the paper. For him, the four concepts, the two concepts of sustainability research and development pathways are closely interconnected. And there is a way, there are many ways in which those two concepts are also directly or indirectly connected to the major theme of the conference, which has to do with migration and sustainable development. So what he has done in this paper is to open, as an entry point, certain conversations about migration and sustainable development. But because I know this is an informed audience, and previous speakers will have said a few things about those issues, I don't think we should bother ourselves so much, wasting time on some of those issues. But the key point I think I should bring out from his expose on that particular segment is to underscore the fact that both the concept of migration and sustainable development are multidimensional. They share a lot of things in common. And those forces they share in common interplay in ways that affect development parts of countries. So I think that is the key point I just need to highlight there. Now, let me just go straight to the key element of the presentation, talking about sustainability research and development pathways. And what he has done here is actually to categorize or divide the presentation here into about four segments. The first one, he asks the question, what is important about sustainability research? Why do we need to bother ourselves at this particular point in time with the question of sustainability research? And he has argued that in recent times, the question of sustainability research has continued to gain increasing relevance, not just in academic circles, even in industries, in policy circles, everywhere you turn. People are concerned now about the question of sustainability research. And for him, before delving into why it is important, into why people are concerned about it, it is important for us to have a working definition of what that concept is basically all about. And according to him, in this paper, it is basically a multidisciplinary field that focuses on understanding the complex interactions between environment, social, economic, and economic systems to promote long-term well-being for current and future generations. And when you begin to speak about accommodating the interests of the current generation without compromising that of the next generation, you are beginning to enter into the concept of sustainable development, because that is what it is basically all about. Again, he argued that sustainability research integrates knowledge from various disciplines, such as ecology, economics, sociology, engineering, and so on and so forth. So I think the key point he's trying to emphasize as an entry point is to underscore the multidisciplinary nature of sustainability research as connected to issues of sustainable development. And of course, there are some scholars he cited here. If time will permit, maybe I can just cite, for example, he cited the definition by the Association of the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education, which defines sustainability research as research and scholarship that explicitly addresses concepts of sustainability, furthers our understanding of the interdependence of ecology and socio-economic system, or has a primary and excellent focus on major sustainability challenge. So that is according to these people. Now, the next question you now ask yourself is, when we speak about sustainability challenge, especially in contemporary times, what are those issues that we are talking about? And how do such issues connect to the questions of migration and sustainable development? Again, he listed some of those issues that fall under the category of sustainability challenge, to include issues such as climate change, global poverty and inequality, natural resource depletion, and environmental degradation, to mention just a few of those issues. So, for him, unless we are able to find a sustainable way of addressing these sustainability challenges that he has listed, we are going to continue to have issues of migration that we are talking about, either through the regular or irregular route, whether through the conventional or the non-conventional way. So for him, addressing the question of those sustainability challenges are central, are critical to addressing those issues of migration. Now, having established the concept, at least the way he has used it in the context of this presentation, you now ask yourself, why do we need sustainability research, okay, at this particular point in time, especially when we are talking about development pathways, we are talking about migration, and we are talking about sustainable development. And I think in the context of this paper, he has highlighted 4 reasons why it is important for us to focus attention on sustainability research. One, for him, is the fact that sustainability research is about what some scholars will refer to as MIT approach to research. And when you speak about this MIT approach, you are talking about multidisciplinarity, okay, interdisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity. Okay, so the time will not allow me to begin to unpack each of these elements. So, but the key point he's saying is that once you take this approach in attempting to find solution to whatever sustainability challenge you are addressing, such as migration, that it gives you an opportunity to have a comprehensive understanding of the interconnections between environmental, social, and economic factors, which allow for a much more nuanced analysis of sustainability issues and the development of innovative solutions that consider the broader implications of human actions on the planet. Because by the time you begin to talk about the push and pull factor in migration studies, you realize that these factors we are mentioning, they are closely interconnected. And it is the interplay, okay, among these various forces that determines the degree, the extent of migration, okay, that countries are experiencing, whether conventional or non-conventional. Again, he has also argued that when you speak about sustainability research, that emphasis is also on partnership, okay, and a commitment to stakeholder engagement and collaboration. And again, this is another key aspect of sustainability research, that if we are going to talk about finding a lasting solution to the problem of migration in whatever form, we need to begin to emphasize this idea of partnership, of collaboration, you know, of stakeholders engagement. And we can begin from now to tomorrow to identify and to define the various stakeholders that are involved when we speak about migration, when we speak about development pathways, and when we talk about sustainable development. Of course, they cut across both governmental and non-governmental sectors. And what sustainability research is actually emphasizing is that there is need for that partnership, okay, among these various actors. So, sustainability research, therefore, is an important tool, okay, for building a much more resilient, equitable, and sustainable world. I can see the moderator already. So, the next thing he did is not to talk about development pathways, but because of time, I won't be able to say much about this. But the key point here is that when you speak about development pathways, you are talking about the different routes, okay, to development that various governments, that various countries may adopt. Our colleagues in economics, we talk about export-led development. Some we talk about domestic effort-led development. Some others we talk about mixed method, whether it is export-led or growth model. Those are the various options they are talking about. But the key thing is that irrespective of that development pathway that any government, that any country may choose to adopt at any point in time, the key emphasis is that you are trying to see how you can improve the economic performance of your country so that various indices, various indicators can be positive. And once you are able to address that, there's every likelihood that the pressure on irregular migration in particular may be reduced. So I think that is the key message that he was trying to pass across here. In the third segment, he tries to look at the nexus between sustainability research and development pathways. And of course, there are key linkages. 5 key linkages he talked about in the context of this paper, that once you pay attention to sustainability research in moving your country forward along any given choice, any part of development, you are likely going to be able to pay attention to issues of sustainability. In other words, taking care of the needs of the current generation without hampering the ability of the next generation to do the same thing. That sustainability research can help you to do that. Again, he emphasized the point that once you pay attention to sustainability research in finding solutions to some of these issues, you are likely going to be able to identify potential risks and challenges associated with whatever development path you are taking. And that way, you are able to take remedial measures to actually redress those issues. In the final segment of his presentation, what he did was to now establish the linkage between sustainability research and development pathways to issues of migration and sustainable development. Again, I think there are 5 linkages that he established here. But I think the key point, because of time, is just to say that the link between sustainability research and development pathways is closely tied to migration patterns. Okay? If you have followed the way he has made his argument from the beginning up to this point, I think that is the key message, that the linkage established between sustainability research and development pathways actually is closely connected, one way or the other, to migration patterns. For example, now, as climate change, natural disaster, and resource scarcity disrupt livelihoods and threaten communities, people may be forced to move. I was listening to Prof when he was talking about Jakwada in particular, and how he was able to utilize his own experience in very positive way. Prof, let me tell you, you were lucky to find yourself in an environment where that kind of tendencies were appreciated. You work under a vice chancellor that knew the value of that. In some other system, in fact, most systems in Nigeria, they will see you as a threat. You want to prove that you know too much. They can even begin to say that you are trying to outsmart the vice chancellor. People will be going behind you to tell him the different stories, to portray you as a threat to that system. So your experience with Jakwada, if we ask other Nigerians with similar experience and you hear their own stories, it's not likely going to be the same as your own. So the key point we're just trying to emphasize to conclude, according to Professor Sulaiman Abubakar, is that we need to invest more in sustainability research because of the benefits it has, not just because of its multidisciplinary approach, but its emphasis on collaboration, on partnership, and sustainability. And all those key elements in sustainability research are important for driving development pathways, okay? And there are ways you can establish the linkage between those issues and the question of migration and sustainable development. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Prof, you have won my heart. At the nick of time, you delivered, like always. We can see a handshake between this presentation. What Professor Abubakar Sulaiman has presented through Professor Omotola, sustainability, has a direct connection with what the Chief of Mission presented earlier and with what Professor Akim Ibikule Tijani presented. So this is going to be an interesting database at the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies. You can continue the conversation even after the conference, because these are important materials for further engagement. So next on the list of the lead paper presentation is Excellency Ambassador Catherine Udida, the Director, Migrant Affairs Department, National Commission for Refugees, Migrant and Internally Displaced Persons. You have the floor, ma'am. If you can help us save time, to be greatly appreciated. Your Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back again. You don't need to worry because I'm already very tired. So, I was given a topic to talk on return. I see there are professors before me, and they have all the facts. We are practitioners. As the lead agency in charge of migration in the country, the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons, we coordinate migration-related issues in the country. I am going to speak just briefly on the return process, the one you call the JAPADA. And I think that we can't talk about return without saying a bit about readmission and reintegration. So I prepared a slide. I'm not really going to follow the slide because, like I said, I'm tired. You can scroll through while I speak. The Nigerian migration governance structure has 4 levels. We have the National Consultative Forum. Next to it is the Technical Working Group. And then we have the thematic areas, and lastly, the state and non-state actors. The first level of that governance, which is the National Consultative Forum, is led by the Ministry of Justice. And then the National Commission is the Secretariat. The next level is the thematic group, which is the area we'll concentrate a bit on, with the technical working group. And then the third is the thematic groups that actually constitute the technical working group. The 5 thematic groups, you have the group on labor migration, led by the Ministry of Labor. We have the thematic group on diaspora engagement, led by NITCOM. The other thematic group is on data management by Nigerian Population Commission and, of course, Bureau of Statistics. And then we have border management by Nigeria Immigration Service. My organization, the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and IDPs, we are the lead agency on return, readmission, and reintegration. As lead agency on return, we have stakeholders who work with us, to ensure that Nigerians that are returned in dignity, Nigerians that come back orderly, and of course are sustainably reintegrated into the society. And of course, the 4th level of the Nigerian governance structure is the state and non-state actors, where we have the subnational at the subnational level, and also we work with CSOs and international partners as the IO. Now I'm going to concentrate a bit on how we operationalize return. We have the pre-departure parts of all returns, whether the returning migrant is there regularly or irregularly, because we take care of all returns. It doesn't matter whether it's forced returns, which is deportation or repatriation, or regular voluntary returns. And so we are concerned about what migrants go through when they are about to return, whether they return as forced migrants, forced returns, or regular returns. When they come in, before they return, we expect that most of them, especially those that are forced to return, are expected to have gone through some psychosocial, support of some sort. And so our missions abroad engage in those supports. And also, of course, we expect that when you come in, especially for those who are not ready to return and are brought back, there should be people to make sure they have soft landing. So the pre-departure counseling is usually important. And then, of course, there are the anxiety of how people are worried. What are they going to expect? And so the different thematic groups in the governance structure take care of all of those. Like the Ministry of Labor, they have the Migrant Resource Center, NELEX, and all of that prepares people when you go into the website to know what it is that you should expect I said most times when people japa and don't want to come back, or jalo, as Prof has said, is the fear of unknown. They are worried about coming back. But we have challenges even then. Most of the arrangements in place with most people, whether it's bilateral or even with pre-departure counselors, do not usually go smoothly. They don't go along the lines of the Global Compact of on migration objectives on what we must do, when somebody is returning. And so we, as a coordinating agency, we liaise with partners, both CSOs, pre-departure partners, countries of destination, to ensure that those who are coming back come back in dignity. And so the challenges there is uncertainty. Those of us who are receiving them not having enough information about, those who are coming back, their vulnerabilities to prepare us to receive them. Usually we don't have such information. And so, even though we have very good partnership with IOM and other agencies, it's not all the time that they are able to give us enough information to prepare for them to return and be okay when they come back. And then, of course, some countries are very, very hostile. And so it's difficult to even get them, to understand that these people, like the acting chief of mission said, they are actually human beings, they are not commodities. And so you may have gone to a country irregularly, but that doesn't stop you from being a human being. And so we try as a commission to ensure that all our returnees are given the best treatment possible. Only last year, I think we got more than 10,000 Nigerians that have returned, and at different levels of, reintegration in collaboration with the technical partners, and then of course the local, our own CSOs in the country, who are in different areas of either shelter or psychosocial support, or even livelihood training in support, that we get support from IOM GIZ to ensure that when they return, they are properly reintegrated. And then there's at the point of arrival, the admission into the country. What we do when people come into the country is very important. Sometimes the apprehension, the worry, we see it just melting away in this, at the different points of entry. Only going with warm food, smile, and tell you all is well usually does a lot, to make sure, assuage their fears and keep them calm. And so they come back with stakeholders and make sure that they are properly admitted. But the challenge we have is sustainable reintegration. When they come in, we may not, as government or with partners, be able to give them enough to actually help them through, mostly those who have been deported or forced to return because of war, like we had in Ukraine and Sudan and many other places. So they return, there are challenges from pre-departure, from arrival, and post-departure when they come back to the country. And so we think as an institution, it's always necessary, to do more research and get to know what best practices, even though there are international frameworks that guide, but how do we do it better for our Nigerians when they are ready to come? But I think most importantly, there has to be a need for more awareness creation. And so we stop people from jackpying in the first place where necessary. Because like I keep saying, going out, migration is a human right. Everybody has a right to move. However, what we call upon everybody else to do is, if you must move, you should move regularly. But as a coordinating agency, we will try as much as possible to be in contact with all relevant stakeholders to ensure that when Nigerians go, whether they are legally, regularly in a place, or whether they are irregularly in any place, when they are returned, it's for us to make sure that all Nigerians, when they return, they come back in dignity, and if there are vulnerabilities and challenges, there should be, framework in place to ensure that all stakeholders, all hands are on deck to ensure they come back and are properly reintegrated into the society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You have assisted us in saving 3 minutes. We are extremely grateful for that. And we thank you for your excellent presentation with statistics and the phases of intervention in dealing with returns and reintegration. Thank you very much once again. So the last on the list of these powerful lead papers is Mr. Aruna Suhaibu from the National Agency, Small and Medium, please, I beg your pardon, let me get it correctly, from Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency of Nigeria, SMEDA. We are happy to have you, sir. You have the floor. Thank you.
Good evening. Our time is fast spent, just like the immediate past speaker. Aside being tired, I think I'm a little bit hungry. Well, I'll do justice to my topic, entrepreneurship in the context of migration. You may want to ask that why do people migrate? Either social, political, economic, demographic, conflict, or even conflict, or even what do you call it? Insurgency, as the case may be. Some of those reasons will overlap. Some may be a combination of all these factors. But one thing you should note is that for every person that migrates, whatever social, political, demographic as the case may be, sustainability is in the center of, or improved livelihood as the case may be. If you're migrating overseas and you have employable skill, fine, you could be employed. But if you do not have employable skill, the most viable option will be to run an enterprise. But if you are going to a foreign country, how do you meet the requirements for you to do business in those places? In the context of this presentation, I will be concentrating on what I prefer to call in inverted comma, the downstream sector of migration. That's the return migrants, because these are the ones that we've been training and we've been helping to start businesses for sustainability. Let me please announce here, for those who do not know, that we at SMEDAN are the longest partners of the International Organization for Migration. For 2 decades, we've been working in partnership, training return migrants on business skill as they come in, those who were returned voluntarily, even those who were deported in some cases, for them to have skills to start and operate a business. In the course of our training and reintegration of migrants, there are specific features we have noticed in the trend we have noticed that has affected deepening entrepreneurship, and those are the things I want to discuss here, to see how we can work together through the migration governance structure, to see how we can improve all that. Of course, I have a simple definition here, what entrepreneurship in the context of migration means. So I will save our time by proceeding further. Sorry, does somebody help me? Okay. So somebody say the forward and backward, please. So let me start by basically saying what are the attributes of entrepreneurship? Because I want us to look at the shared traits that entrepreneurship and migrants have. Inspiration, creativity, action-oriented, courage, drive and fortitude, strength and determination to resolve problems in the face of adversity and competitive spirit. Resolve problem, you could see that is highlighted in red because that is basically what entrepreneurship is. When we train entrepreneurs, we tell them that wherever you go and look for a peculiar challenge in that society, build a business around it, solve that problem, and make money from it. But who is a migrant? A migrant is a man that is very resilient, isn't it? A man with higher level of openness to experience than the locals of whichever society he eventually goes to. A man with determination, grit, sheer will to succeed. A man with new ideas related to new technologies. A man that can persevere and possess high problem-solving skill. A man with a high ability to adapt to environment and change. Now, if you look at these two pictures, what it means naturally is that entrepreneurship is actually made for migrants. But like I said, I am concentrating on return migrants, who are the ones that we've been involved in their training. In the last, since 2017, I personally have been involved in training of migrants yearly, and it's safe to say that I've been involved in the training of over 11,000 migrants, personally. My agency has the highest contribution of trainers in the migration ecosystem. So what are the success factors? Knowledge, skill, and attitude. We expect that for you to do business, you have a firm or as a return migrant, you have an advantage over other entrepreneurs here because your opportunity, the grit and determination with which you have traveled globally, you have more experience and knowledge than some of the people you meet here. You come back, chances are you have a higher skill or innovation about doing things differently from those who are here. And most importantly, attitude. What are the 3 P's of attitude? We break them into 3. We say patience, persistence, and passion. If you're going to do business here in Nigeria, whether you like it or not, you're going to be patient because there are a lot of obstacles that will line on your path in doing business in Nigeria. We expect you to fail, like we tell most of the entrepreneurs we train, because it's a learning curve. The more you train, the more you learn, the more you become better in what you do. But persistence. I don't know if anybody comes from a village here. From my village, we grow different foodstuff, crops, including grains. And those grains, when we harvest them, we dry them either on tarpaulin or on the floor. And you see chicken from the neighborhood, we come to peck on them. And we drive those chicken 10 times. Chances are they will come back 11 times. Now, what that means is that there are a lot of potholes in building your businesses, but you have to be persistent because of the challenges you face in the process. Then, of course, passion. If you do not love what you do, chances of you succeeding is very minimal. So your passion, your love for what you do will drive you. We already know the merits of entrepreneurship from all the speakers today. All what there is not new. Economic integration, starting a business can be a pathway for migrants to integrate into the local economy and achieve economic mobility. Skills transfer, like I said, they bring in new skills that a lot of persons do not have here, or how to do it better than those who are here. And of course, community impact. Migrant entrepreneurs can contribute to sustainable economic development of their communities by creating jobs, fostering sustainable economic development. But in the course of our training of migrants and strengthening entrepreneurship along the migration ecosystem, we notice that the biggest challenge they face is distraction. Every time we train those migrants, we profile them according to their individual businesses that they want to do. A lot of time, most of them just tell you they want to do this business because somebody sitting beside them told them about that business. you profile them, do case management, you reintegrate them, they give them money for their startup businesses. But as they commence these businesses, they are going to be seeing somebody close by doing something different from what they are doing and succeeding faster, and they run away from what they are doing. That's why I use this picture as an example. If this were to be a cycling competition, the lady in the front is actually ahead, I think. Then why is she looking back? She's looking at the other persons to see how fast they are catching up with her or what it is they are doing differently. And in the process, she'll be distracted. So she could either end up falling or those behind will come and what? Overtake. So those are the challenges that they have. Distraction is a big problem for them. But structurally, those are the inhibiting factors for return migrants who start businesses and want to deepen or grow their business. There is basic lack of sufficient mentoring. We at the IOM provide facility. We take them to different centers, either Lagos, Ibadan, Benin, Kano, Kaduna, Abuja, or Asaba. We train them for a week. Then we provide startup grants for them. After then, there are no structure in place to hold them for them to go subsequently. Access to finance is like national anthem. It's a very big problem, even for local entrepreneurs, talk less of those returnees who are coming and wanting to start a business within the space. Infrastructure deficit. There are no common facility centers around where people who have skill, for example, can go and use facilities for production, as the case may be. Regulatory and policy constraints. The red tapes are massive. To register just a business name in Nigeria, if you do not have patience, you run away. Inadequate market access, challenge in knowledge transfer, expertise development, supply chain integration, barriers in adopting new techs, and disparity in digital tool and access, usage, economic instability, certain policy changes every day by government, and of course social norms, depending on the society where you're operating your businesses. But we are looking at innovative ways to strengthen migrant entrepreneurship, advocacy, and ease of doing business. The migration governance will have to handle that to help reach out to regulatory institutions to create opportunity for migrants to register their businesses and other certifications. Sector-specific knowledge and capacity development. We bring them to those trainings and we train them for 5 days on general entrepreneurship and they go. But we need to now begin to develop structured trainings, sector-specific. Those who are in agribusiness, those who are in the digital space, those who are in service, we will look for sector-specific training for them. Increase access to finance, innovative ways, creation of common facility centers, network communities, and value chain. Today, if you go to a different state and say, let me see the migrants who are here, who are doing this particular form of business, it is very difficult to get them together because the network communities are outrightly or nearly non-existent. New partnerships and collaborations. Have we looked at foundations, the Dangote Foundation, the Aigimokwere Foundation, Bills and Melinda Gates? We can also look for other opportunities from there to support what the IOM is doing for migrants in that space. Storytelling and visibility. It's a shame we cannot identify icons to showcase their businesses so that icons who are migrant businesses, so that other ones who come in can learn or work in their shadow. Let's have a TV or radio program where we communicate, where we celebrate, where we inform the public of businesses that are started by migrants. And of course, establish a platform to share experiences and challenges that they face. But at SMIDAN, we tried our best because, like I said, we are the foremost partners of IOM in this particular field. We have different programs all over the country. And for all of these programs, we made it a duty that for every state you implement those programs, you look for migrants in those states and bring them into those space. Rita Ogome, you can see her on the left. We trained her in 2021. In 2023, when I went to Delta for our flagship program, I have to bring in Rita, and we trained her in fashion, and we gave her an industrial sewing machine. On the right, there is Hadiza Abdullah in Kano. She's into cake making and the rest. So after the training, we trained 10 migrants on that particular program, and we all gave them startup tools. Well, I just want to show you briefly some of the things that we have going on at SMIDA for that migrants can leverage upon. These are two flagship programs: the National Business Skill Development Program and the Conditional Grant Scheme. For all the 36 states of the country, we are deploying the program. We're training 90 beneficiaries on entrepreneurship and vocational skill. We certify them, and of course, we give them free startup tools. Like I said, do not forget, I said we are prioritizing migrants in the, what I call those who come in the returnees. But my interest now is the conditional grant scheme, because most of the challenges those migrants face that I listed are solved through that particular program. We're training 18 beneficiaries in all the 774 local governments. We'll provide them, we'll open an account for them. That's a financial inclusion. We'll provide free business development training for them, free registration of their businesses so that their businesses become formal, startup grants for each beneficiary. Like I said, when for the over 20-something thousand migrants that have been trained under the IOM program, what IOM have succeeded to help us do is to train and bring into the system over 2,000 or 3,000 informal businesses. We have a duty to upscale them to formal businesses. Please, when you are free, either as the migration governance or this particular institute, reach out to me. I want to bring you to our office. We now have a common facility center here. It's less than 2 kilometers from here. Near adjacent Bega there. You can see we have over 300 industrial sewing machines. And to the glory of God, I attended a program where I displayed this, and UND had to book an appointment to come to the office to see. And last week we commissioned the solarized project by UNDP. UNDP spent $200,000 to solarize this particular facility. So if you are into fashion, you do not need to have a shop, as the case may be. Just come to our office and register. You use the facility. If it's night, there is a place for everybody to sleep. If you want to work overnight, 24 hours is available for you to work. So we're looking to reach out to the migration governance so that we fix a time for you to come and see. Yesterday, my director general said I should do a letter to Paula Pace that she wants to visit her to show her some of the things we're doing, because we're starting a new program. I will explain in the end when I get to the last slide. This is at the furniture common facility center too. We brought in state-of-art equipment from Turkey. We signed an MOU with them on Thursday. They're also going to solarize this particular one and make it available for people who are in the furniture space. But this is the game changer. Last year, we sent a memo to the National Council on Industry, Trade and Investment, and we had approval to commence this program, support program for return migrants. And this is the reason why my Director General want to meet with the IOM Chief of Mission. What we want to do on this particular program is to provide specific business information and sector-specific training for migrants, vocational skill training for beneficiaries of those programs. We provide them startup grant work tools. We provide enterprise extension services, that's mentorship, follow-up, so that we can hold them to see how their businesses will grow. We provide access to market and finance through our fairs, so that some of them can come from all over the country to come and showcase their innovation and what they do. And then most importantly, we'll try to build network communities and value chain for them. I'll give you an example. In Yobe, where we have a high net numbers of migrants, during the time we trained them, we noticed there was a particular trend. All of them were into goat herding or cattle fattening. Now, what we want to do with the network community is to develop a value chain. All of you cannot just be fattening the cows and herding the goats. Who are going to meat processing, dairy production, and the rest, so that we want to break down and have those network communities in those places to support all of them migrants. But for every state that we go for this program, we'll look for all the migrants there and bring them into our trainings. As a roundup, I'll just be a little philosophical. I love the story of this little boy. He went to a town where they said there was an old man who could answer any question that you have. And the boy went and met the old man. And he said, Baba, they say you can answer any question. He said, yes. Well, I have a simple question, Baba. He said, you see, in this my hand, Baba, there is a bird, B-I-R-D, bird. Baba, I want you to tell me if this bird is alive or dead. And the old man said, is that your question? He said, yes. He said, the life of that bird is in your hands. If I tell you that the bird is alive, you will squeeze your and kill it. And if I tell you that the bird is dead, you will open your hand and let it fly. The sustainable growth of businesses of migrants in Nigeria is in our hands. We either squeeze it or we open our hands and let it fly. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Aruna. He's an orator.